Good afternoon. You're watching The Briefing Room. Rapid developments today in that case regarding the suspected explosive device sent to political leaders and former presidents around the country. I'm joined by our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, who's there at the FBI. I hope we can bring Pierre in, who's been tracking all of these developments as they move quickly. Pierre, what do we know about how law enforcement made this case and arrested a suspect?
Well, it's like a drama, a TV police drama. They found a latent fingerprint on one of the packages, specifically the one from Congressman Maxine Waters. They found a latent fingerprint, was able to match that to the suspect, Cesar Sayoc, who's 56 years old, of Aventura, Florida. They also found DNA evidence on these devices. So this is very much a case of forensic investigation leading to a break in the case. And the amount of time that it took, roughly 24 hours to wrap up the suspect, get him in custody. And the FBI also emphasized that these were potentially dangerous devices. The FBI director specifically called them IEDs, improvised explosive devices. So a major break in the case, obviously.
That was really interesting. It stuck out to a lot of people when Ray said that, because it seemed to directly contradict the tone out of the White House, which at times over the last few days has sounded suspect of whether or not these were actually dangerous devices. What did you make of Ray's comments there? That seemed to strike you as interesting and important as well, Pierre?
Well, he's going based on the facts, and he said, quote, "These are not hoax devices." And he made that clear. And again, when you use the term IED, you're making very clear that these are potentially dangerous. And he made the point that if the kind of chemical, the powder that was inside these pipe bombs had been exposed to heat and certain kinetic energy, that they would be dangerous to people in terms of exploding or burning people. So that is what the current analysis shows. Now, there will be more analysis done at the FBI laboratory to determine if the devices were viable in the sense of, okay, did they have a connection that would cause them to detonate? What was the method of detonation that would cause them to become dangerous? That much we don't yet know.
Pierre, it's Justin. Tell us what we know about his partisan connections. We heard Jeff Sessions today, and this is the takeaway that really struck me. He said he appears to be a partisan. Does this sort of dispel any rumors of a false flag? What do we know about that van? What can we say about that at this point?
Again, I've not had a chance to read through the complaint just yet, but one of the things is that there's a van that has been confiscated in connection with him. Apparently that van has a number of symbols on it, so that will be information. There are a number of reports out there that we're trying to run down, quite frankly, involving photographs of the suspects supposedly at rallies. So there is information that points in that direction, but again, they did not give a definitive motive just yet. That much is still under investigation.
Picking up on Justin's question and what Pierre was saying, the criminal complaint does make mention of that white van.
You have it right here.
It talks about the windows of Sayoc's van were covered with images, including images critical of CNN, one of the targets of some of these devices.
And obviously the president was all over that thing. The vice president was on it. There was even targets of political figures on that van. He was living in the van, they said as well, by the way.
The targets, the complaint lays out that some of the packages contained pictures of the targets with red X's through them. And so these were very menacing packages.
Pierre, before we let you go, do you think that that's the next step of this investigation, to look more into the suspect's motives, or is law enforcement still focused on tracking down other potential devices?
Well, I think priority number one is to find out if there are more devices in the shipping system. Are there more devices that have been mailed? We saw just this morning with an alleged device sent to Senator Cory Booker, Senator Kamala Harris of California. That is an ongoing concern. Another device apparently showing up in connection with former Intelligence Director Clapper this morning as well. So that possibility is real. Law enforcement is not yet ready to say that this is over. So vigilance is the key word.
And to Pierre's point on vigilance, authorities are urging people who, if you see something, say something. They want people to call in anything that looks suspicious, they might find in the mail, or any other suspicious objects or activities. They want them to report that to law enforcement and let the police or agents or law enforcement authorities that respond to that, let them sort it out.
14 total devices so far.
And Pierre, we know you'll be tracking all of the developments. Thank you so much for joining us. I think that we've been relying on your reporting minute by minute over the last few days. I also want to bring in Roy Ramos, who's one of our colleagues with our Miami affiliate down in Florida. Roy, tell us what you know about how this arrest played out.
Well, we did get a chance to speak to a few witnesses who were walking by this area on the sidewalk, in fact, right outside of the AutoZone that we're standing in front of, who said they heard a loud bang and then saw law enforcement from all directions just swarm on top of this suspect, who we have learned has been identified as 56-year-old Caesar Sayak. Now, we also did get a chance to preview some surveillance video. Right now I'm working on getting that, but that surveillance video does show law enforcement use what appears to be a loud white bang or some sort to distract the suspect, and then at that point you see all of law enforcement swarm that individual. Now, right now, the AutoZone here has been closed. They have a sign outside on the front door that says they'll be open at 7:15 tomorrow morning. But while it was open, we saw federal investigators inside speaking to an employee. They're also looking at a screen, possibly going through surveillance video. We know that one employee was escorted out of this AutoZone into a vehicle outside of this location just moments after that white van was towed away and taken to the Miramar FBI office.
And what is the mood like there on the ground? Were people anxious, nervous over the last few days? They must have been as we started to zero in on that location.
Well, I'll tell you, the mood of people along this street, we're along State Road 7 here and about 8th Street, they were a little concerned because this is an area that has mostly businesses that line it. And for that reason, all of those business owners, along with customers, came out to see all of this activity. They wanted to know what was going on, and hearing that this was a man who was in connection to all of these bombs that have been sent to high-ranking government officials, they were definitely concerned with what was going on, but a little relieved to hear that someone, at least in connection to those devices, was in custody.
Okay, well, Roy Ramos, thank you so much for providing some insight from the ground with our Miami affiliate, obviously tracking the developments as well. Both of you listened today to the president comment on this. We have some of that sound. I want to listen to what the president said today and then get your reaction to it.
We've carried out a far-reaching federal, state, and local investigation to find the person or persons responsible for these events. These terrorizing acts are despicable and have no place in our country. No place. I've instructed authorities to spare no resource or expense in finding those responsible and bringing them to swift and certain justice. And we will prosecute them, him, her, whoever it may be, to the fullest extent of the law. We must never allow political violence to take root in America. But a bottom line is that Americans must unify, and we must show the world that we are united together in peace and love and harmony as fellow American citizens.
Justin, you made reference to the fact that earlier today, the president tweeted and put bomb in quotes as if downplaying the situation.
Well, there's two things. One, he seemed to suggest they may not be real because none of them did go off, which is an important point. But one of the things Chris Rada said today was that these were improvised explosive devices. I mean, he said these things were not necessarily inert. They had the potential to do damage.
So specifically, they're not hoax devices.
The very important point.
They
contain energetic material.
Now, one thing about what we just saw with the president there that is really important. You saw he's had the East Room of the White House filled with supporters. It was a young black leadership event. They were enthusiastically behind the president. And, you know, as he called for civility and calm there and announced that they had found this person, which is great news, the event went on. And what you didn't see was that there were chants of Soros and lock him up. I mean, it is all his rhetoric is so deep into the bloodstream already, you can't really put that genie back in the bottle. So even while he's calling for everybody to take it easy, his supporters are not letting it go, and then he gets which gets him riled up. He's not going to let it go. I think he's given us every indication that he's no intent to really tone the whole thing down before the election.
And
I
want
heard
to
the Attorney General today calling this an act of political violence, and so we're associating it with political violence. It's certainly a challenging political circumstance for the president to navigate, given all of his public remarks.
I want to take that point to Catherine Folders, our White House producer, who's there on the lawn. Catherine, you and your team wrote today that the president seemed uncomfortable with this story. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, well, he said it himself, really. He said in that East Room event today that Justin was referencing that you just saw, that he was upset that his drug prices announcement wasn't being covered the other day because of this. His tweet this morning, where he seemed to suggest that maybe this was fake, exaggerated in some way by putting a bomb in quotes. He went on to reference the midterms and said that it's sad that you see it right there. Very unfortunate what is going on. Republicans go out and vote. He's saying that when this stuff happens, that the media is covering, the momentum greatly slows. So the president, he's saying that himself, but as you guys were talking about, he still faces a lot of questions. He's likely to get a lot of questions just here in less than an hour when he departs for that rally in Charlotte. The other thing to look for, though, tonight in that Charlotte rally is if he extends any sort of olive branch to these Democrats who were the targets and recipients of these packages. Does he do that in any way? Does he mention them? Does he tone down the rhetoric in any way? As Justin was mentioning, his supporters are already fueled off of this. You'll likely still hear some of those chants, but is there another call for unity? He also said we must never allow political violence to take root in America. Does he elaborate more on that at all? His previous comments where he's attacked his opponents.
And Catherine, do we have any reporting as to whether or not the president has personally reached out to any of his predecessors who were targets of this? Of all these devices?
We've asked the White House about that. We don't know if he has done that yet, what calls he's placed, or if he's going to place any of those calls, or even, as I was just saying, whether he will extend an olive branch in any way or mention any of these people by name in his rallies tonight. We know that he didn't do that in a previous rally, so we're still working on that, but we'll see.
And the president there again on the campaign trail tonight, as you mentioned. It's been a whirlwind campaign, sort of extravaganza from this president, and we don't see any sign that he's going to be slowing down. Instead, really ramping up his work to help get Republicans elected across the country. Catherine, before we let you go, the president's not on the ballot, obviously. Do you think that his work out there is going to make a difference?
Well, he certainly thinks it does. Obviously, as we were just talking about, he's frustrated by this narrative, by the current media coverage. But look, he's cramming in like 2 or 3 rallies a day from October 31st, so next Wednesday, up until the election. The campaign says that he will have at least 10 rallies. So his supporters are certainly riled up. But look, at every one of these rallies, he's been saying this is the midterm election about the caravan, about tax cuts, and they all seem to agree with him. He's taking that message to every single one of these rallies, and that's what he wants to make it about, immigration.
Thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate it. It's interesting, though, because Democrats have a very different story to tell. They've said that this campaign is about health care, jobs, wages.
Health care.
They seem to be speaking past each other in a lot of ways.
Okay, so the mind-blowing statement of the week was President Trump's tweet on Tuesday. The polls have shown, as you're saying, that this is actually an election about health care in many cases. So
that voters care about that issue.
Voters care about this. So the president tweets this week, Republicans will totally protect people with pre-existing conditions. Democrats will not. Vote Republican. Okay, so when we're talking about falsehoods, that's right up there on like 5-alarm fire situation. You can make an argument that there are plenty of Republicans out there who do support protection for pre-existing conditions, but I think it's really hard to overlook the fact that they voted to tear down Obamacare over 50 times in the House. It's just not, I just don't see who's buying all this. He's trying to basically take his beliefs, put them onto Democrats, and say, actually, we're for Obamacare. It's a very strange political turn.
And we also know that a number of Republican-controlled states have been suing to not have to enforce some of those protections. We have a graphic, though, I think it's important for us to end on that shows just the record amount of turnout and enthusiasm around this election. There you have it, the early voting numbers. We are still obviously about 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks from Election Day, and yet so many people have cast their vote already. Does that get to sort of the high stakes of this election? What do you think, gentlemen?
Come on, Jack. I think it does. I mean, I think that it will be really interesting to see how whether or not this vote if these numbers hold, and I think they will. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of people voting. There's a lot of big issues on the ticket, and as you said, it's not just about the president. It's about matters that are local issues. Everybody's got a lot of reasons to be out this time around.
You know, the FBI director talked about energetic material. There's a lot of energetic material in this campaign right now that's energizing voters on both sides, and I think the numbers reflect that.
Historically, high turnout is good for Democrats. We obviously don't know if those are Democrats or Republicans or a mix, independents that are voting, but record numbers of turnout in multiple states. We have Justin Fischel with our White House team, Jack Date, who covers law enforcement and the FBI. I'm Mary Alice Parks. Thanks for joining us on The Briefing Room. We'll see you next time.